The auction hall on Station Veyrath hung in the void between three dying stars. Inside, the air shimmered with the breath of 1,000 alien species. Merchants, slavers, and collectors gathered beneath crystalline arches that refracted light into colors no human eye had names for. On the platform, a small figure stood in chains. He was human. A child. Perhaps 10 years old by the reckoning of his vanished species. His name was Kale, though the auctioneer did not use it. To the galaxy, he was simply Lot 447, the last verified human specimen in existence. Earth was gone. Not conquered. Not colonized. Gone. 3 months prior, the Vorten Empire had glassed the entire planet. 30 billion humans reduced to ash and radiation in a single afternoon. The Vortens claimed it was necessary. Humans, they said, had refused to submit to the Galactic Concordance. They had refused to surrender their weapons, their autonomy, their future. The galaxy had watched. And done nothing. Now this child was all that remained. Found drifting in an escape pod near the orbit of Mars, he had been sold from merchant to merchant, each hoping to profit from the novelty. A living relic. The last ember of a species that had burned too bright and been extinguished for it. Commander Thane of the Vorten fleet stood in the shadows of the auction hall, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He had led the assault on Earth himself. 20,000 warships, orbital bombardment platforms, antimatter missiles. The humans had fought desperately, their primitive vessels outmatched but relentless. But in the end they had burned. 200,000 credits, called a Zelthari merchant, his translator crackling. 300,000, countered a Kryn collector with scales like polished obsidian. The child did not move. His eyes were gray like smoke, fixed on something beyond the crowd. He did not cry. He did not beg. He simply stood, small and silent as the galaxy decided his worth. Thane smiled. Let them bid. Let them parade this last human like a trophy. It would serve as a reminder to every species in the Concordance. Defiance ends in extinction. 500,000, a new voice echoed through the hall. The crowd turned. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in black thermal weave. The voice was calm, human in its inflection but filtered through a translator. Who bids? The auctioneer demanded. The figure lowered his hood. Gasps rippled through the chamber. He was human. Broad-shouldered, scarred, with eyes like cold steel. Behind him, 3 more humans emerged from the crowd, their movements precise and predatory. I am Captain Marcus Roan of the Terran Remnant Fleet, the man said clearly. And I'm taking the boy. Laughter erupted from the Vorten section. Thane stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in amusement. The Terran Remnant Fleet? There is no fleet. Earth is dust. You are ghosts pretending to be soldiers. Marcus did not blink. We were off-world when you came. Mining colonies. Research stations. Military outposts scattered across 70 systems. You thought you killed us all. You were wrong. Thane's amusement faded. Even if true, you are fragments. Refugees. You have no power here. Then you won't mind if we leave with the boy. The auction hall fell silent. Every species present understood the calculus. Humans were extinct, their homeworld destroyed. These survivors were nothing. But something in Marcus Roan's voice made the room hesitate. You cannot afford him, the auctioneer stammered. The bid stands at 500,000 credits. Marcus reached into his coat and placed a small device on the auction platform. It hummed softly, projecting a hologram. Coordinates. Star charts. Vorten supply routes. Fleet positions. Defense grids. This contains the complete military intelligence of the Vorten Empire, Marcus said. Hacked from your own command network. Worth more than every item in this auction house combined. Consider it payment. The room erupted. Vorten officers reached for weapons. The auctioneer's translator stuttered in confusion. But Marcus and his team moved faster. In seconds, Kale's chains were broken. The boy was lifted into strong arms, and the humans moved toward the exit. Thane roared, "You will not leave this station alive." Marcus turned at the doorway, his expression hard as iron. "You burned our world, Commander. You murdered our families, our children, our future. You thought that would be the end of us." He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle over the hall. It was only the beginning. Then they were gone, vanishing into the station's labyrinthine corridors as alarms shrieked through the void. Thane stood frozen, staring at the empty platform where the last human child had stood moments before. Around him, the auction dissolved into chaos. But all he could hear was that final promise, echoing in his mind. It was only the beginning. The transport ship Remembrance cut through the darkness between stars. Inside its cramped passenger bay, Cale sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, still silent. Marcus knelt before him, offering a ration bar. "You're safe now," Marcus said gently. "We're taking you home." Cale's eyes lifted. "Home is gone." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a dead world. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. "I know," he said quietly. "But we're building a new one." One of the other humans, a woman with cybernetic implants running along her jaw, approached. "Lieutenant Sarah Chin, Chief Intelligence Officer. Captain, we have a problem. Vorton pursuit ships just entered the system. 12 frigates and a battle cruiser." Marcus stood. "Time to intercept?" 18 minutes. "Get us to the rendezvous point." "Full burn." The ship shuddered as engines roared to maximum output. Through the viewport, the stars stretched into lines of light. Cale watched, his small hands gripping the blanket. "Why did you come for me?" he asked suddenly. Marcus looked at him. "Because you're one of us. Because we don't leave anyone behind. And because you're the future." "I'm just a kid." "You're more than that. You're proof we still exist." The ship rocketed through space, alarms blaring as Vorton vessels closed the distance. Marcus moved to the cockpit where his pilot, a grizzled veteran named Torres, wrestled with the controls. "They're faster than us," Torres growled. "We won't make it." "We don't need to outrun them," Marcus said. "We just need to reach the line." Torres glanced at him. "Sir, there's nothing out here. This sector is empty." Marcus smiled grimly. "That's what they think." The Vorton battlecruiser emerged from faster-than-light travel, its massive hull bristling with weapons. Commander Thane stood on the bridge, his rage a palpable force. The humans had humiliated him, stolen from under his watch, and made him look weak before the entire station. "Target the transport," he commanded. "I want them vaporized." The weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, sensors are detecting anomalies ahead. Energy signatures that don't match any known." "I don't care about anomalies." "Fire." Missiles streaked through space toward the fleeing transport. But before they could strike, the void itself seemed to tear apart. Ships materialized from nowhere. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Sleek, black vessels that seemed to drink the light around them, their hulls covered in adaptive camouflage that rendered them nearly invisible. They moved with predatory grace, forming a wall between the Vorton fleet and the transport. Thane stared in disbelief. What is this?" On the lead ship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even Vorton battlecruisers, Admiral Elena Vasquez sat in the command chair. Her hair was silver, her face lined with scars, but her eyes burned with purpose. "This is the Terran Remnant Fleet," she said into the open channel. "And you've just entered our territory." The Vorton officers froze. Sensors were screaming now, detecting ship after ship decloaking from the darkness. Carriers. Destroyers. Fighter squadrons. A full battle fleet, hidden in the void, waiting. "Impossible," Thane breathed. "Earth's military was destroyed." "We confirmed." "You confirmed what we wanted you to confirm," Vasquez interrupted. "Did you really think all of humanity lived on one planet? We had colonies across 90 systems. Research installations. Military black sites. When you came for Earth, you missed the spider's web." The Vorton weapons officer spoke urgently. "Commander, we're outnumbered 3-1. Their technology is—" "I can see their technology." Thane snarled. But he could also see the truth. These ships were not primitive. They were advanced, perhaps more advanced than Vorton designs. Stealth systems. Energy weapons that hummed with barely contained power. Point defense grids that could swat missiles from space like insects. How had the humans hidden this? How had they built this? Vasquez's voice continued, cold and precise. "You have one chance, Commander Thane. Turn your fleet around and leave this sector. Tell your empire that humanity is not extinct. Tell them we remember what you did. And tell them we're coming." Thane's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "You cannot win a war against the Vorton Empire. We have 10,000 worlds, 1,000,000 warships. And we have nothing left to lose," Vasquez said. "That makes us the most dangerous enemy you've ever faced." The standoff stretched for 10 heartbeats. 20. The Vorton fleet held position, weapons armed. The human fleet waited, silent as death. Finally Thane spoke. "Retreat. All ships, retreat." The Vorton vessels turned, their engines flaring as they fled back toward the jump point. Within minutes they were gone. On the Remembrance, Marcus watched the fleet surround them, protective and vast. Cale stood beside him, staring at the ships with wide eyes. "This is home," the boy whispered. Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. The Galactic Concordance convened an emergency session. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Concordia Prime, a neutral space station where galactic law was forged and enforced. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, a sphere 3 kilometers in diameter with artificial gravity allowing delegates to stand on every surface, creating a three-dimensional assembly. The Vorten delegation sat in their designated section, Commander Thane among them. Across the chamber, the Zelthari, Kryn, Orvithai and countless other species waited. At the center, the High Arbiter, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, presided. "This council recognizes the Vorten Empire," the Arbiter intoned, its voice resonating through every translator. "You have requested this emergency session. Speak." The Vorten ambassador stood, his ceremonial armor glinting. 3 months ago, the Vorten Empire conducted a lawful extermination operation against the human species. They refused to join the Concordance. They refused to disarm. They were a threat. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The humans had been controversial, aggressive, expanding too quickly, too eager to claim territory and resources. "We executed our duty to galactic security," the ambassador continued. "But now, evidence suggests we did not complete the task. Human survivors have formed a military fleet. They attacked our vessels without provocation. They threaten the peace of this concordance." A Kryn delegate, her scales shimmering blue, spoke up. "The humans were defending one of their own. Your forces pursued them into disputed territory. They stole from a lawful auction." "An auction selling a child?" another voice called out. "A sentient being sold as property." The Arbiter raised one crystalline limb. "Order. The matter before us is not the ethics of the auction, but the status of humanity. Ambassador Vorten, you claim the human threat persists. What evidence do you present?" Thane activated a holographic display. Footage from the confrontation played across the chamber, showing the human fleet decloaking, the massive dreadnoughts, the weapon systems. "They have built a war fleet in secret," Thane said. "They possess technology equal to or exceeding our own. And they have made direct threats against the Vorten Empire. We request Concordance authorization to complete the extermination protocol." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species agreed, fearing human expansion. Others objected, questioning the morality of genocide. The Arbiter was about to call for order when every screen in the chamber went dark. Then a face appeared. Admiral Elena Vasquez, broadcasting from somewhere in deep space. "Members of the Galactic Concordance," she began, her voice steady. "I am Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Remnant Fleet. You are debating whether to authorize our extinction. Allow me to save you the trouble." Security officers rushed to trace the signal, but it was bouncing through 100 relay points, untraceable. 3 months ago, the Vorten Empire murdered 30 billion human beings. They destroyed our homeworld. They scattered our ashes across the cosmos. The galaxy watched and did nothing. You cited law, order, necessity. You called us a threat because we refused to be vassals. Her eyes hardened. "You were right to fear us. But not for the reasons you think." She gestured off-screen and new images flooded the displays. Human colonies bustling with activity. Shipyards, vast beyond measure, constructing vessel after vessel. Research stations where scientists worked on technologies the galaxy had never seen. Mining operations that stripped asteroids to their cores, feeding the endless hunger of human industry. While you debated and politicked, we built. While you enforced your laws, we adapted. We took our grief, our rage, our loss, and we forged them into purpose. You wanted us gone? You pushed us into the darkness? Good. We thrive in darkness. The Vorten ambassador stood, his voice shaking with fury. "This is an act of war. You broadcast into this sacred chamber." "I'm broadcasting so you understand what's coming," Vasquez interrupted. "We are not asking for permission to exist. We are not seeking your approval. We are informing you that humanity survives. And we remember." The Zelthari delegate spoke cautiously. "Admiral, what do you want?" Vasquez's expression softened slightly. "Recognition. Sovereignty over the territories we now hold. And reparations from the Vorten Empire for the genocide they committed." Laughter burst from the Vorten section. "Reparations? You are refugees. You have no leverage." "Don't we?" Vasquez smiled coldly. 24 hours ago, we seized 3 Vorten mining colonies in the Outer Rim. 48 hours ago, we destroyed a supply convoy headed to your frontier worlds. 72 hours ago, we hacked your military network and extracted every secret you have. We've been inside your systems for months. We know everything. The chamber fell silent. You can try to hunt us, Vasquez continued. Send your fleets. We'll vanish. We'll strike from shadows. We'll bleed you slowly until your empire collapses under the weight of a war you cannot win. Or you can negotiate. Recognize our sovereignty. Pay for your crimes. And live. The arbiter's voice was grave. And if we refuse? Vasquez's smile disappeared. Then we'll show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of when you take everything from us. We'll become the nightmare you always feared we'd be. The transmission ended. The council sat in stunned silence. The Vorten Empire chose war. Within days, the largest military mobilization in galactic history began. 500,000 warships assembled at staging points across Vorten space. Battle fleets that had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds now turned toward human territory. The other species of the Concordance watched nervously, many pledging support to the Vortens, others remaining neutral. But no one helped humanity. They were alone. Admiral Vasquez stood in the war room of the TRNS Defiance, the flagship of the remnant fleet. Around her, holographic displays showed enemy movements, resource counts, tactical projections. Every analysis painted the same picture. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and outpositioned. They're committing everything, Captain Marcus Rohn said, studying the formations. This isn't a punitive expedition. This is total war. Good, Vasquez replied. Let them come in force. Large fleets are slow, predictable, and require massive supply lines. Lieutenant Chin highlighted a star system on the tactical map. The Vorten Advance Fleet is approaching the Kepler Junction. If they take it, they'll have a clear route to our primary shipyards. Then we make sure they don't take it, Vasquez said. She turned to the assembled officers. Gentlemen, ladies, we are about to teach the galaxy a lesson our ancestors learned centuries ago. You don't win wars with the biggest army. You win with the smartest strategy. The Kepler Junction was a confluence of 3 jump routes, a natural choke point in space. The Vorten Advance Fleet, commanded by War Marshal Krenth, consisted of 3,000 warships. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. They entered the junction expecting resistance. What they found was emptiness. Sensors detect no human vessels, the tactical officer reported. The junction is clear. Krenth, a veteran of 50 campaigns, felt unease crawl up his spine. Scan again. Full spectrum. Nothing, War Marshal. No ships, no mines, no defense platforms. They abandoned it? It appears so. Krenth studied the tactical display. It made no sense. The Kepler Junction was strategically vital. Why would the humans simply surrender it? Proceed through the junction, he ordered. But maintain combat readiness. The Vorten fleet advanced, thousands of ships moving through the silent darkness. They were halfway through when the trap sprung. Not from ships. From the asteroids themselves. Hundreds of rocks that had floated innocuously in the junction suddenly roared to life. They weren't asteroids at all but disguised weapons platforms. Railguns emerged from false craters. Missile pods unfolded from manufactured crevices. Energy weapons charged with a hum that resonated through space itself. The platforms opened fire. Vorten ships exploded by the dozens, caught in a crossfire from every direction. Their shields, designed to face forward threats, were overwhelmed by the omnidirectional assault. Chaos consumed the fleet as ships collided trying to evade, their formations collapsing. Then the human ships appeared. They didn't decloak nearby. They came through jump points at the edge of the junction, having waited for the perfect moment. Small, fast attack ships equipped with experimental weapons. They moved like sharks among the wounded Vorten vessels, their guns precision instruments of destruction. On the Defiance, Vasquez watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Target their command ship. I want Krentha's flagship disabled, not destroyed. Aye, Admiral. Torpedoes streaked through space, bypassing shields with adaptive frequency modulation, a technology the humans had developed in secret. They struck the War Marshal's flagship, inevitable, crippling its engines and weapons but leaving life support intact. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Vorten Advance Fleet was shattered. 1,200 ships destroyed. 800 captured or disabled. The rest fled in disarray. Human casualties, 47 ships. 3,000 personnel. On the Inevitable, Krenth sat in his darkened bridge, emergency lights casting red shadows. A human boarding party entered, led by Captain Rohn. War Marshal Krenth, Marcus said formally. You are a prisoner of the Terran remnant fleet. Krentha's 4 eyes burned with hatred. You won a single battle. The Empire will send 10 fleets to replace this one. Then we'll destroy 10 fleets, Marcus replied. You still don't understand, do you? Earth taught us something long before we reached the stars. Humans have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We've perfected warfare into an art form. We've studied every strategy, every tactic, every way that blood can be spilled efficiently. He leaned closer. You thought destroying Earth would break us. It only freed us. No more politicians holding us back. No more ethical debates. Now we fight with the full weight of our species' expertise. And War Marshal? We're very, very good at killing. Krent said nothing. The news of the Kepler junction spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The humans, outnumbered and alone, had defeated a Vorten fleet decisively. Species across the Concordance watched with growing unease. Perhaps, some whispered, the Vortens had made a terrible mistake. Perhaps humanity was not prey. Perhaps they were predators. In the months that followed Kepler Junction, the war transformed. The Vorten Empire, humiliated but undeterred, adapted its strategy. No more massive fleets. Instead, they deployed smaller, faster strike groups targeting human colonies and supply lines. The humans adapted faster. On the mining colony of Titan's Rest, colonists watched the sky with fear as Vorten raiders approached. 5 warships, more than enough to destroy the settlement. The colony had no military presence, no defense fleet. It should have been an easy target. The Vorten ships entered orbit and prepared to fire. That's when the ground opened up. What the raiders had mistaken for mining equipment were actually disguised artillery batteries. Gauss cannons, powerful enough to punch through starship armor, rose from hidden silos. The colony itself was a fortress, every structure reinforced, every civilian trained in combat. The Vorten ships were destroyed before they could retreat. This pattern repeated across human space. Every colony, every outpost, every supply station was a potential death trap. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. There were no civilians anymore, not really. Every human was a soldier, every building a bunker, every ship a potential warship. The Vorten military command struggled to comprehend this total mobilization. Their own empire had civilians, workers, non-combatants. The humans seemed to have none. They had become a species entirely devoted to war. On Concordia Prime, the Galactic Concordance watched with growing alarm. Ambassadors from neutral species called for peace negotiations. The violence was spreading, destabilizing trade routes and threatening border regions. The High Arbiter convened a special session. The human conflict has persisted for 6 months, the Arbiter announced. Casualties number in the millions. Economic disruption affects 30% of Concordance trade. This council must act. The Vorten ambassador stood. The humans must be eliminated. They are a cancer spreading through. The humans have requested formal recognition, interrupted the Zelthari delegate. They have demonstrated the capability to defend their territory. Under Concordance law, they have earned sovereignty. They murdered billions of Vortens. After the Vortens murdered 30 billion humans, a Kryn representative countered. Let us not pretend moral authority here. The debate raged for hours. Finally, a vote was called. Should humanity be recognized as a sovereign species with rights under Concordance law? The result shocked everyone. 62% voted yes. The Vorten delegation walked out in protest. But the decision was made. Humanity was officially recognized. Admiral Vasquez received the news aboard the Defiance. She stood in her quarters, staring at the message, feeling something she hadn't allowed herself to feel since Earth burned. Oh. Captain Roan entered. Admiral, the Concordance is offering to mediate peace talks. They're requesting both sides send representatives to Concordia Prime. The Vortens will never negotiate, Vasquez said quietly. Then we have another problem. Marcus handed her a datapad. Our intelligence networks report the Vorten Empire is constructing a new weapon. Something they're calling the Stellar Convergence. Details are scarce, but preliminary data suggests it's a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. Vasquez felt ice in her veins. How long until it's operational? 3 weeks. Maybe less. She closed her eyes. They had fought so hard, survived so much. But if the Vortens had truly built a weapon of that magnitude, everything could end in an instant. Prepare the fleet, she said. We're going to strike their shipyards before that weapon goes online. Admiral, that's suicide. Their shipyards are in the heart of Vorten space, protected by their home fleet. We'd need to fight through 50,000 warships. Then we fight through 50,000 warships. Marcus stared at her. Elena, we can't win that battle. We don't need to win. We need to destroy that weapon. Even if it costs us everything. Young Cale, now training as a tactical officer despite his age, had overheard from the corridor. He entered quietly. In 6 months he had grown. Not physically, he was still a child, but in his eyes. They held a hardness that childhood should never know. Admiral, he said, his voice stronger than it had been. There might be another way. Vasquez looked at him. What do you mean? Cale approached the holographic display and manipulated the controls with practiced ease. A star map appeared, showing Vorton space, their shipyards, and the location of the weapon. We can't fight through their fleet, Cale said. But we don't have to. Look at the shipyard's location. It's orbiting a Class M star. If we could destabilize the star, the resulting explosion would destroy everything in the system, including their weapon. Marcus frowned. Destabilize a star? That's theoretically possible, but the energy requirements are within our capability, Cale finished. Before Earth fell, my parents worked on stellar engineering. I have their research. It's possible. Vasquez studied the boy, seeing in him the future of their species. Brilliant, adaptable, unafraid. How many ships would we need? 1, Cale said. But it would be a one-way trip. The room fell silent. The plan was madness. Beautiful, terrible madness. A single human vessel, the TRNS Prometheus, would carry a stellar destabilization device deep into Vorton territory. The ship would need to evade 50,000 warships, reach the heart of enemy space, deploy the device into the star itself, and ensure it detonated before being destroyed. The crew would not survive. Everyone understood this. Volunteers stepped forward by the hundreds. Every human who heard about the mission wanted to be part of it. They weren't seeking glory. They were seeking revenge for Earth, for their families, for the 30 billion who would never see the stars again. Admiral Vasquez chose the crew personally. 50 of the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers humanity had. Captain Marcus Rohn would command the mission. The night before departure, Vasquez met Marcus in the observation deck of the Defiance. Through the viewport, stars stretched endlessly, beautiful and cold. You don't have to do this, Vasquez said quietly. I can assign someone else. Marcus shook his head. No one else can. You need someone who won't hesitate, who won't flinch when the moment comes. That's me. You'll die, Marcus. I died when Earth burned. This is just finishing what started that day. They stood in silence, 2 survivors carrying the weight of their entire species. Do you think it's worth it? Marcus asked suddenly. All this death, all this pain. We've become what they feared. Warriors, killers. Is survival worth losing who we were? Vasquez considered the question. I don't know. But I know that we have a right to exist. That has to count for something. The galaxy tried to erase us. We're proving they can't. Maybe that's enough. Marcus nodded slowly. Take care of the kid. Go. He's special. I know. Raise him better than we were raised. Don't let him become just another weapon. I promise. They embraced, 2 soldiers saying goodbye. The Prometheus departed 18 hours later. It was a stealth ship, coated in adaptive camouflage, equipped with every evasion system human engineers could devise. The stellar destabilization device sat in its cargo bay, a weapon that could murder a star. The journey took 9 days. They slipped through Vorton patrols like ghosts, using gravitational slingshots around planets to avoid detection. Twice they were nearly discovered, but luck and skill kept them hidden. The crew worked in shifts, maintaining absolute silence, every system optimized for stealth. Cale monitored their progress from the Defiance, coordinating navigation data and sensor readings. He hadn't slept in 3 days, his young face drawn with exhaustion. Lieutenant Chin tried to make him rest, but he refused. I sent them there, he said. I stay awake until they complete the mission. On day 9, the Prometheus reached the target system. The Vorton shipyards hung in orbit around the star Vex 7, a massive stellar furnace that powered half the Empire's industrial capacity. Surrounding it were the shipyards, space stations, defense platforms, and the home fleet. And there, in the central construction bay, the stellar convergence waited, nearly complete. Marcus stood on the bridge, watching the enemy forces through enhanced optics. Thousands of ships. Millions of personnel. All about to die because of what he was about to do. He felt no guilt. Only purpose. Engineering status on the device? Armed and ready, Captain. Once deployed, the star will go supernova in approximately 40 minutes. Tactical, plot the insertion course. Get us close enough to deploy without being detected. Aye, sir. The Prometheus moved forward, diving into the system's gravitational well. They were close now, so close that enemy sensors should have seen them. But human stealth technology held. They were invisible, a knife sliding toward a giant's heart. Then alarms blared. Multiple contacts, the tactical officer shouted. Vorten patrol ships, bearing 270. They've spotted us. All power to engines. Marcus commanded. Deploy the device now. The cargo bay opened, and the stellar destabilization device launched toward the star. It was a simple thing, barely larger than an escape pod, but contained within it was destruction beyond measure. Exotic particles designed to disrupt the star's fusion processes, triggering a cascade reaction. Vorten ships converged on the Prometheus, weapons firing. Shields flared and died. Hull breaches erupted across the ship. Devices away. Engineering reported. Entering the star's corona. Then our job is done, Marcus said calmly. He opened a channel to the entire crew. It's been an honor serving with you all. For Earth. For humanity. For everyone we lost. For Earth, they shouted back. The Vorten weapons tore the Prometheus apart. 50 souls scattered across the void. But below them, inside the star, something awakened. 40 minutes later, Vex 7 exploded. The supernova consumed everything within 6 astronomical units. Shipyards, defense platforms, the stellar convergence, 50,000 Vorten warships and 15 billion personnel stationed in the system. Gone in an instant of cosmic fire. Across the galaxy, sensors detected the explosion. The Galactic Concordance watched in horror. The Vorten Empire reeled in shock. And humanity mourned 50 heroes. The destruction of Vex 7 broke the Vorten Empire. Not immediately. The Empire had resources, infrastructure, pride. But the loss of their home fleet, their primary shipyards, and the stellar convergence shattered something deeper, their certainty. For 1,000 years, the Vortens had been unchallenged. Now, a species they had tried to exterminate had struck at their very heart. Within weeks, Vorten colonies began declaring independence. Border regions fell into chaos. The Empire's iron grip loosened as internal rebellions erupted. Other species, sensing weakness, moved to claim disputed territories. The Galactic Concordance intervened, forcing all parties to the negotiating table. The peace conference convened on Concordia Prime 3 months after Vex 7. Admiral Vasquez led the human delegation, accompanied by Lieutenant Chen and, remarkably, Kale. The boy was now 11, but he carried himself with a gravity beyond his years. The Vorten delegation arrived under protest, their ambassador replaced by a younger official, Ambassador Tyreth, who lacked the previous representative's arrogance. The High Arbiter presided. This council convenes to negotiate peace between the Terran remnant and the Vorten Empire. Both sides have demonstrated capability for mutual destruction. Now we must find capability for mutual survival. Tyreth spoke first, his voice strained. The Vorten Empire acknowledges the sovereignty of the human species. We propose a ceasefire, establishment of neutral zones and trade agreements. Vasquez sat forward. Not enough. You murdered 30 billion of our people. Destroyed our homeworld. You don't get peace with a handshake and trade agreements. What do you want? Revenge. Justice, Vasquez said coldly. Full reparations for the genocide. Territory ceded to human control. War crime tribunals for those who ordered Earth's destruction. And a formal apology broadcast across every world in the Concordance. The chamber erupted. Multiple delegates shouted objections. Tyreth's face darkened. Impossible. The Empire would never accept such humiliation. Then the war continues, Vasquez said simply. And next time we won't just destroy one star system. We'll destroy 10, 20. We'll burn your empire to ash, system by system, until nothing remains but the memory of your pride. The High Arbiter intervened. Admiral Vasquez, such threats are not threats, she interrupted. They're promises. You all watched while the Vortens committed genocide. You did nothing. You voted on laws and procedures while 30 billion humans died. Now you want us to forgive and forget? No. The galaxy needs to understand that actions have consequences. The Vortens started this war. We will decide how it ends. Kale stood then, his small frame drawing every eye. When he spoke, his voice carried through the vast chamber with unexpected strength. My name is Kale. I am 11 years old. I am the only survivor of Earth's southern continent. 3 months ago I watched my world burn from an escape pod. I watched the oceans boil. I watched the continents crack. I watched 30 billion lights go out. The chamber fell silent. The Vortons did this because we wouldn't obey them. Because we wanted to be free. Because we asked questions they didn't like. And when we refused to surrender, they decided we had no right to exist. He turned to Tyreth. You want peace? You want forgiveness? Then earn it. Admit what you did. Face the consequences. Show the galaxy that justice still means something. Because if you don't, if you hide behind pride and politics, then humanity will teach a different lesson. We'll teach the galaxy that genocide is not just a crime. It's a death sentence for those who commit it. The boy sat down. The silence that followed was absolute. Tyreth looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of hundreds of species. Some sympathetic to the Vortons. Many not. He saw the calculations playing out. If the war continued, the Empire would eventually fall. The internal rebellions, the resource drain, the military losses, it was unsustainable. The Empire will consider your terms, he said finally, his voice hollow. You have 72 hours, Vasquez replied. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. In the end, the Treaty of Concordia was signed. The Vorton Empire agreed to formal recognition of human sovereignty over all territories claimed by the Terran remnant, reparations totaling 10 trillion credits, paid over 50 years surrender of Commander Thane and 17 other war criminals for trial, a formal apology delivered by the Vorton Emperor himself, establishment of a memorial at the location where Earth once orbited. The galaxy watched as the Emperor, a being who had ruled for 3 centuries, broadcast his apology across 1 trillion screens. His voice shook with humiliation, but he spoke the words. The Vorton Empire acknowledges the crime of genocide committed against the human species. We accept responsibility. We ask forgiveness though we do not deserve it. The humans have proven themselves stronger than we believed, more resilient than we imagined, and more merciful than we had right to expect. In the years that followed, humanity expanded cautiously but confidently. The Terran remnant became the Terran Federation, a network of colonies and outposts across 100 systems. They built new worlds, new cities, new futures. But they never forgot Earth. At the coordinates where their homeworld once spun, a monument was constructed. The Memorial of Ash, they called it. A massive structure of black stone and polished metal, floating in the void. On it were engraved 30 billion names. Every human who died when Earth burned. Kale stood before the memorial on its dedication day, now 15 years old and a junior officer in the Federation fleet. Admiral Vasquez stood beside him, older now, her hair fully white. Do you think they'd be proud of us? Kale asked quietly. Of what we became? Vasquez considered the question. Around them, thousands of humans gathered, a solemn crowd floating in zero gravity, tethered to viewing platforms. We became survivors, she said. We became warriors. We became harder than we were. But we also became proof that humanity cannot be erased. That no matter how dark the night, we find a way to carry the light forward. Yes, I think they'd be proud. A human priest, one of the few who still practiced the old religions, spoke words of remembrance. Songs were sung in languages from every Earth nation that had existed. Children who had never seen Earth, born in space or on colony worlds, listened to stories of oceans and forests and skies that changed color with the hours. As the ceremony concluded, Vasquez activated the memorial's central feature. A hologram appeared above the monument, a perfect recreation of Earth as it had been. Blue and green and white, spinning slowly, beautiful and alive. It would spin there forever, a ghost of a world, a reminder of what was lost and what was preserved. Across the galaxy, other species watched the ceremony. Some with pity, some with respect, and some with fear. Because humanity had taught the Concordance a lesson that would never be forgotten. You can destroy a human world. You can kill billions of humans. You can burn their cities and scatter their ashes. But you cannot destroy the idea of humanity. You cannot kill the spirit that drives them. And if you try, if you push them into the darkness and force them to fight for their very existence, they will emerge from that darkness transformed into something terrifying. They will become the thing you always feared they might be. Apex predators who remember every wound, every loss, every injustice. And who will ensure, with every fiber of their being, that such things never happen again. 10 years after the Treaty of Concordia, the Terran Federation had become one of the most respected powers in the galaxy. Not the largest, not the richest, but respected. When humans spoke in the Concordance, people listened. When humans made treaties, people honored them. When humans drew lines, people did not cross them. And on the bridge of the TRNS Defiance, now under the command of Captain Kale, The youngest captain in Federation history, humanity looked toward the future with eyes that had seen the worst the galaxy could offer, and survived. The last child of Earth had become the first of a new generation. A generation that would never forget where they came from, what they had lost, or what they had proven. Humanity was not the strongest species, not the oldest, not the wisest, but they were the ones who came back from extinction. The ones who turned ashes into armor, grief into strength, and loss into an unbreakable will to survive. And that, more than any weapon or fleet or technology, made them truly exceptional. The story of Earth's fall and humanity's rise became legend across the galaxy. Parents of 100 species told their children, "Remember the humans. Remember what happens when you try to erase a species that refuses to die." In the depths of space, on worlds humanity now called home, children played beneath alien suns. They learned their history, their heritage, their purpose. They were taught mathematics and art, engineering and philosophy. But most importantly, they were taught this: never forget, never surrender, never let the fire die, because they were human. And humans, against all odds and all enemies, endured. The end.